If I was in charge, and of course, the underlying inquiry is about control and the mechanisms that we use to try to keep ourselves safer. Let's take a moment here and just kind of let our mind wander. What would you change if you were in charge of the world? Some of these will have in common, social justice, housing, food, family connections, acceptance, creativity and joy, and certainly equality and equity. Notice what comes to mind as you think about that. What would you change? And the reason that it's something that we even have an interest in trying to change, in part, is because we have good hearts and we want people to be happy. We want housing, food security. We want things to go well for ourselves and for each other. And we want to live in the kind of world where we can be who we are and we can express ourselves as who we are. And that dancer, I know for sure now I couldn't do that with my body. But what a look of joy on her face. What would you change? Just like loving kindness practices, where sometimes we move from the very personal to the universal. We're going in the opposite direction this time. So, what would you change if you were in charge of the people close to you? So, we all have a lot of influence over the people close to us. And how they are and what they do is very important to us. It has a big impact on us. So, if someone we love or we're in a family with or at work or wherever it is has an addiction, it would really be a great thing for them and for us if they would stop doing those things that are unhealthy for them. If they could resolve their own situation enough that they could relax and not have to escape into addiction, into a behavior, a substance. So we'll take several minutes here. Always with these inquiry practices, we get really settled and grounded in our present moment. You could look around the room that you're in. Notice that right now we're doing an inquiry. We're looking into some things. We're noticing our body. And stay really regulated with your breath. And then bring probably one person at a time. Bring someone forward and feel into that. Notice their face, their body, their presence, your relationship with them. And when you bring this to mind for them, see if you could make it quite specific. I want them to be happy is fine. I want them to something more specific will get us more grounded in the inquiry. And this doesn't have to be something that's like a universal good kind of thing. It could be something that I want them to be more present so that I don't have to always be trying to get their attention. Or I want them to phone me sometimes instead of me always phoning them. So we could be working with something that would help them to be happier. But it's also grounded in what do we want to be different? What would help us if they were different? Stay grounded in your body with your breath. And notice the energy of that in your body. If we want someone to be different than they are, what does that feel like? And how does that play out in your relationship with them? Notice if you're angry at them, if you feel sorry for them. And in particular, look into, is there any feeling of, I know better than they do, or any kind of even subtle disrespect? Sometimes the language might be, well, if they would just do this, or if they would just see, or can't they open their eyes and see? There's often a frustration. It's not evil or something, it's just a natural frustration of, why can't they see what's good for them? Why can't they do what they know is good for them? So notice if there's any of that kind of judgment, or sometimes there's a hard heartedness almost. We're not really attuned empathetically to them. And if you wanted to move to a few other people as well, notice if there's any common patterns on your side of the fence. What does it feel like for you when you get frustrated with someone, or when you want them to change something and they're not? And stay in touch with your body, your breath. Don't move into shaming yourself. Let's see if you could be really clear. These are difficult dynamics to work with. And then if you are wanting to continue with whatever inquiry train of thought you've got, you could certainly do that. Otherwise, and in the next moment or so, just to bring yourself out of that inquiry for a moment and check back into your body and see what happens if you were to say a reverse statement like, I'm completely comfortable with how they are. I fully accept them just as they are. Notice if there's any resistance, any buts. But if they keep doing that, they could, whatever that might be, and then just let them be in your awareness. Take some deep breaths. One thing that we can notice is that it would be better for us if they were to be healthier or take care of themselves better or stop being so nasty with us or whatever that might be. It would certainly be better for us. And that's okay to have that self interest. It's just good if we can see it, feel it in our body. Part of the reason I want them to change is because I would be less anxious. I could stop worrying about them, whatever that might be. And then come back to that feeling of this is another human being. Their life is for them to figure out. And I care about them and I'm supportive and I want to help. And it's really not mine. I can let them be. And I'll work with what's on my side and I can stay attuned to them, even though I might be worried about them or I might think they should really change something. I could still work with staying on my side of the fence there. And take several deep breaths. Let the whole inquiry kind of recede. Because this is also true. As much as we want someone to change, we also have a basic respect for them as a human being and for their own autonomy. They don't just exist to fill our needs. We know that. Take a few deep breaths and do a reset. Feel your feet on the floor, your seat. Look around a moment. And then let's bring it closer to home. I accept that I can't control everything about my life. And this is a reverse inquiry. That statement would not be true for most of us, or maybe not for any of us. We accept it on one level, and we also probably really wish that it was different. I know I do. And just to sit back and let yourself be very aware of your whole somatic experience. Notice your body, sensations, your breath. And I'll slowly read these with a little pause in between, or you could just focus in on one of them. When we're looking at the reality of our life situation and the fact that we actually don't control a lot of what happens in our lives. There's accidents, there's a sudden change in health, there's somebody we meet that's amazing that we just all of a sudden our life feels so vibrant and alive. We don't control very much in our lives. But when it's a negative change or something that scares us, what comes up when you think about that? When I feel powerless and overwhelmed, these are some things that I do or that I could do. These are some options that I have now. So to link it back to what we were just working with, instead of trying to make someone else change so that we feel safer, this would be just things that we could work on. What are some of the things that we can do? And one of the things that's very common is that we shame ourselves too, just as we might with someone else who, well, they should just do this. Why can't they just do that? Or why can't they just stop? Notice if you're doing that with yourself. If you're shoulding yourself, could you stop and pause and let yourself really feel into softening that? We have a lot of agency and we have a lot of habits and we have a lot of fear. We have unhealed trauma. So to work with that really close, compassionate, empathetic attunement. This is one of the reasons why it's really helpful to know about trauma so that we can look at this and say, okay, that's a trauma response. I can see that I've been doing this thing for decades because whenever I'm not able to cope, I go into a freeze response or I can't get out of bed or whatever it might be. So it's helpful to know that this isn't a fundamental wrongness about ourselves. This is a way that we're trying to cope with quite difficult circumstances. And could we attune to that and have compassion for ourselves? And at the very least, stop shaming ourselves. Notice your body, your breath. If you want, you could put a hand on your heart. Tune into that basic respect that you have for yourself. We know what to do usually, and it doesn't always mean that we can do it. But getting cold hearted with ourselves or shaming ourselves always makes it worse. So if you're in a bit of a shame situation, see if you could bring yourself out of that. Look around the room, bring your eyes up, your heart open, your shoulders down. Take some breaths. And from a stronger, more grounded place that's realistic and it's not shaming, what agency do you have? How could you work with whatever your situation is with respect and care for yourself? Maybe working with other people, maybe working with yourself, just like as we're doing right now. Cultivating that sense of warm, open hearted support for ourselves. What's your response when you feel into that? I actually can't control everything about my life. A lot of things I can influence about my own self and habits and other people as well. How does that sit with me? I actually can't stop everything bad from happening. I can't control everything. I don't know what's going to happen. And could I be a bit more okay with that? Maybe even feel some excitement. I don't know what's going to happen. It could be wonderful. Notice what it feels like to give ourselves that respect. I'm a person who's had a lot of experiences that were hard. I have a nervous system that's vigilant, maybe hypervigilant. I have fears, I have frustrations. And yet here I am. I'm present. I'm excited to be able to do this healing, to get to know myself better. I don't need to be in control of everything in order to be okay. And then let everything move to the background. Notice again your whole body, head to toes, your breath. Open your eyes and look around.